Yeah, I got it. I got it. Now I'm all pinned in here. Have to get prayer, but somebody needs to help me with the prayers here today. Donna, come on, help me. This, what are we going to do first, second, and third? I need an Om say. Okay. All right. Well then, whatever she said, we'll do. All right. What was first? All right. So that's Taya. Anybody who's new, real new, first time ever? Bless your heart. All right. There's three. Okay. So this is a mantra, Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra. If you could take all of his teachings, he taught for like 40 years, and distill them. It's like a reduction. If you're a cook, you reduce it, you reduce it, you reduce it, you reduce it down to this mantra. Everything, this mantra symbolizes everything the Buddha ever taught. Bam. And so you need to think the very powerful words. We're going to say it seven times. Seven times. Is that right, Donna? Seven times. Okay. So we're gonna. It's the song. It's sung too. It's like ta ta. Om mane mane maha mane soa daya ta. Om mane mane maha mane soa daya ta. Om mane mane Mahamaniye Soa Dayata Om Mane Mane Mahamaniye Soa Dayata Om Mane Mane Mahamaniye Soa Dayata Om Mane Mane Mahamanaye Soa Dayata Om Mane Mane Mahamanaye Soa. All right, now the four measurables. Sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Now do that in Tibetan. All right, I'm not good at that, so okay. Chantan Chede Wadam Dewe Gudam Damba Gyoji Dung Yel Dang Du Gyagi Gyudong Rewa Gyoji Dung Yel Mepe 8 Om Manis first. Om Mani Padme. So that one's, again, this is the mantra for the new people. This is the mantra of the Buddha of compassion. And lots of tunes to it. But again, it's Om Mani Padme Hum, and we'll sing it to a tune, but it's the it focuses the mind, but it also has a certain vibration to it. You can think of it as sort of activating the energy of compassion in your own mind. And the visual representation of Chenrezig is right there. Thousand Arm Chenrezig. Could be form, but it's Thousand Arm. And then the green Tara, Om Tare Tu Tare Turi Soha, is this green, beautiful green lady who symbolizes the perfection of compassionate action, just like the green. The green is an action color. So we'll do. I don't do the. I don't know that. I have my own tune for Om Mani Padme Hum. So let me hear the one that we do. Mani Padme Hum, like that. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 That was more than 7, but that's okay. Now, again, help me here with the tune. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. Tari Tu Re So Ha. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. Is that it? Thank you. So my name's just some people don't know who I am. Last time I did this, at the end of the talk, somebody said, "Who was that guy?" So I guess I should say who. So I'm Don Brown. I'm one of the old timers around here, and I teach Discovering Buddhism, and sometimes on Sundays I talk. And Sarah Brooks said she's going to keep an eye on me, make sure I'm not giving out any false information. She'll get me. So anyway, I'll do my best to represent Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Not that this means anything, but I've been studying Buddhism for about 35 years, something like that. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about what I wrote up there today. But we're going to start out by doing some practices, just kind of get the mind ready for the teachings. So I'm making this up as I go. So let me think about it. So I think we'll start out with just mindfulness of the breath. Now, this is a real simple thing to do because we breathe all the time. You want to sit up straight. If you're in a chair, you don't want to be. You can sit back if you want to, but the idea is you want your vertebrae to be sitting one on top of the other like checkers, and that kind of keeps you more alert. Your hands can be sitting in your lap in a more traditional way like that, or you can just hold your palms in your lap like that. And bring your awareness to your breath. And you can silently count. Geshe-la teaches this. I think it's pretty good. you can silently count to 21. And once you get to 21, you come. If you lose count at 1 or 2 or 3, you have to come back. But if you get up to 21, that's great. You can start over again. Most people will find that they're lucky to get to 5 before they get lost. But you breathe out and in as one. So silently. You're not going like that. You don't want the people next to you distracted by your breathing. So just kind of following the breath very naturally and gently. You breathe out and in 1, out and in 2, up to 21. So we do this, and this is kind of cool, but because your mind will try to take off, and because this is boring, to be honest with you, it is. And so your mind wants something exciting, and so drawn to some object of attachment or something more interesting. As soon as you catch yourself being distracted, bring your mind right back to the breath. That's the practice. That's the crucial part of it. Bringing your mind back. Even if you just do it one time in the next 5 minutes, then you've meditated. If all you do is daydream, you haven't meditated. You find your mind wandering off and you have to bring it back again and again. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you're a loser. This is the practice. This is the practice of training your mind. We have not been taught to do this. This is a new thing for a lot of us, to really discipline the mind and keep it focused on one object. Now we're going to shift from this one kind of meditation, which is the focusing kind of concentration practice that we were just doing, to a different kind of practice. And this is contemplative type meditation. We're just going to review some of the points that the key point in all of Mahayana Buddhism, which is what's taught at the center, is one of the key points, but the main thing that distinguishes Mahayana Buddhism from other versions of it, such as Zen, that would be practiced in China and Japan, or in some certain parts of like Vietnam, and Theravada, which is practiced in Burma and Thailand and Laos and Sri Lanka and certain parts of South India. So Tibetan Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism is actually Zen shares the same motivation, but it's the motivation is that we're practicing to develop ourselves not just for our own benefit, but principally is to develop our good qualities and eliminate our faults, our harmful mental states and the actions of body and mind that follow those harmful mental states. We want to eliminate those and develop all of our good qualities, compassion, wisdom, and so forth. To fully develop those qualities. We want to do that not just for our own well-being, but so that principally we want to do it so we can help others. That's the goal. So that's the intention. It's called the awakening mind, bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Lots of different ways to describe it, but it's what it boils down to is two things. I want to help others to achieve their full potential and find true, lasting, not only happiness, but bliss and joy and freedom. Okay? Not temporary happiness, but something that's way more profound than that. And the method to do that is I have to get my act together. I have to develop my own good qualities and eliminate my faults to truly be able to accomplish what I want to do. Not, so the work starts right here with this one, with me, with you. So one way to briefly think about this is to contemplate, well, you know, everybody's the same in one really important way. We all want happiness, and none of us want to suffer. And we instinctively think that my happiness is more important than her happiness or his happiness. That's just how we operate. As they say, that's how we roll. I'm the most important one, and in the sentence. That's just how we operate. But in fact, everybody equally wants happiness and equally doesn't want to suffer. Every living being, even animals, insects, all want the same thing. They want to live, they want to be happy, they want to have a full stomach, and they do not want to suffer. So I'm just one. And we think, well, others, we think of others as one too, but others are actually infinite. Countless beings are others. So whose happiness is more important, the happiness of one or the happiness of countless others? We all equally want it. Whose happiness is most important? Well, our ego, which is our biggest problem, our self-centered ego says, well, I'm the most important. My happiness is most important. But in fact, if you really think about it, the happiness of others is way more important than the happiness of just one person if just you're looking at it objectively. But at least others' happiness is equal to my happiness in terms of desire for happiness and desire to avoid suffering. If we can get to that point mentally, that's huge. We all equally want happiness and avoid suffering. Everybody in this room, exactly the same. Got lots of stories we make up about our lives and who we are and who we aren't. But next time you look in somebody's eyes, you go, wow, whatever's coming out of their mouth, there are two things that are driving them. I want happiness. I don't want to suffer. That's it in a nutshell. In Buddhism, we say the cause of all suffering is self-cherishing selfishness. Self-cherishing selfishness. Think about it. Killing, stealing, adultery, lying, slander, harsh speech, idle gossip, hatred, fear, jealousy, pride, anger, ignorance. 84,000 delusions, in fact. All of them derive from one, one demon. There's one demon in one devil, and it resides right in the center of our mind. It's called ignorance, which is self-cherishing selfishness. Thinking I'm the most important one, I'm the center of the universe, the world is here to please me. If it's delicious, I want it. If it's not delicious, get it away from me. Me, I. Source of all pain and suffering from the beginning of beginningless time until now. That's the one demon. Any action motivated by that mind will always, always, always lead to pain eventually. Might give you some temporary pleasure now, long term, big problems, big problems. And the cause of happiness is cherishing others. The cause of any action motivated by this, the energy of self-cherishing is like, it's kind of dark and gloomy and tight and uptight and constricted and so forth. The energy of cherishing others is sort of, you can feel the energy is focused outward. It's completely opposite of self-cherishing, cherishing others. If you cherish others, you wouldn't kill them, you wouldn't steal from them, you wouldn't, you wouldn't, commit adultery, to harm your family and blah blah blah, and lying to others, stealing and bad mouthing people, and wasting their time with idle gossip and so on. Cherishing others is the source of all happiness. Bumper sticker Lamas that somebody put, that's quoting Lama Zopa. Very simple. For happiness, cherish others. For happiness, cherish others. Easy. So easy. And so hard to do. And then the next step is to exchange. It's just a little mental Aikido, or gee, I don't know. I guess I don't know Aikido, but anyway, it's like where you just kind of switch self-cherishing mind. You imagine, this is a little practice that we do. We imagine that on this body and mind, this collection of body and mind, so-called 5 aggregates, 4 mental and 1 physical. So it's just the body and mind. On this body and mind, now instead of labeling it I, you label it others. And on the ones out there, we label those I. Okay? So now, when you get up in the morning, you get up for who? Others, because now my name is Others. You get dressed and try to look your best for others. You work hard for others. You take care of your health so you can serve others. You practice focusing outward on others. This is called exchanging self-cherishing for cherishing others. This is the title of this little contemplation. Very profound practice. And then in developing this awakening mind, we get, one of the bodhisattvas, these awakening warriors, these practitioners who've done this work for so many years and have really transformed their mind to the point where, they think this way instinctively. But the contemplation that we do to get there is we think, okay, I am personally responsible for the happiness of all sentient beings throughout all space and time. This attitude sounds so crazy, but it's an attitude that the Bodhisattva has. It's not Geshe Gelug's responsibility. It's not Robbie Watkins or Lama Zopa or the Dalai Lama. It's my responsibility. It's, for you say it's my responsibility to awaken and then lead all sentient beings from their present state of confusion all the way to the state of full enlightenment. I am personally responsible. And that includes your worst enemies. Ouch. People you don't like. The people that when as soon as you see them, you turn around and walk away. Even those people you need to get included in this. And then the next contemplation is called generating bodhicitta, and it's based on this kind of thinking. I can't even stop my own suffering. I mean, I'm still a mess. My mind's wild. I can't even count my breath past 5 without getting lost. You know, I think of myself all the time. You know, I've done all the 10 non-virtuous actions many times, if not in this life, in past lives, and on and on. We think, gosh, we're so far from enlightenment. It's just ridiculous. I can't even think about it. But we need to think about it. We need to think that I can do it. I can do it. And so we make this commitment, not just for us. This isn't for us, by the way. This isn't for us. Our happiness is the byproduct of our dedicating our lives to others. It just happens by the way. So we set our goal. I must liberate all sentient beings from suffering and guide them to the highest happiness of enlightenment. And to do that, I'm going to get myself together. I'm going to practice this path that the Buddha has laid out, called the Lamrim, which has been laid out so perfectly and has been trod. This path has been practiced by thousands of beings who've achieved enlightenment and achieved extraordinary states of peace and satisfaction and happiness. And I'm going to practice that path. I must become enlightened in order to liberate and to serve all sentient beings. That becomes the instinct for your life. That becomes the driving force for your life. I must practice ethics. I must practice concentration. I must develop wisdom. I must practice the 3 scopes, 3 principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. So many ways it's packaged, right? And then there's generation and completion stage of Tantra. But the path's been laid out by our teachers and their teachers before them in an unbroken lineage all the way back to the Buddha. This is not something that's just been concocted in the last 15 years. This has been practiced for thousands of years, and it works. Nothing wrong with the path. Path's fine. And it's up to us to practice it. I can almost promise you that what we're doing this morning has never been done at the center, but I haven't been here every Sunday. But I don't think we've ever had this kind of conversation before. By the way, I want to take one thing off the table here. Things I don't like about Buddhism. You cannot talk about our center director. He's right here. I'm just teasing. I don't like Robbie Watkins. No, you can't say that. But anyway, I don't. I thought about other ways to say this. Don't like seems a little bit too simple. So other words I thought of would be like off-putting, things that are off-putting about Tibetan Buddhism. Um, confusing. What's another word? Um, bewildering, confusing, off-putting, doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Yeah, I have a plant here, by the way. Robbie's going to help me with this. Doesn't make sense. Difficult. Whoops. I don't spell that well, but anyway, you get the point, right? It's like, okay. Well, one of the things that I found very reassuring when I started to study Buddhism, I took comparative religion in college. I thought Buddhism was ridiculous. I had no interest in it at all. It wasn't until I went to Nepal and actually saw these people that were practicing it and were amazing human beings. I went, wow, this is not just a bunch of words in books. This is actually a living spiritual tradition. So anyway, things I don't like about Buddhism. So it's important, I think. The Buddha said, test my teachings, which I really found liberating to hear that. He said, test them like somebody who's assaying gold. Just don't believe it because it sounds good or whatever, but check it out. Make sure if it makes sense. If it makes sense to you, if it fits your experience, if it doesn't harm you, if it doesn't harm others, why wouldn't you want to incorporate it into your worldview and into what you're doing? So there's most religions wouldn't be having, most spiritual traditions wouldn't be having this conversation about, well, what do you like and what do you don't like? But we can talk about it because you don't have to, in Buddhism, it's not like you go to a banquet and you have to eat everything on the table. You eat what you pick and choose what works for you, and then gradually over time, hopefully we find more and more that's useful. Okay, so don't make me do this, but who's a good writer? I can tell you are. So I'm going to let you write. What's your name? Meg. Okay, Meg. Thank you. If you can just make a list down here, probably fill up the whole board, but at least if we can come up with one or two. So let's have, think about this, really, because we'll talk on some of these. We may not get to all of them, but we can touch on some of them, because I've had a lot of problems with Buddhism over the years, so I'll say something too. I'll say one thing. I don't like the kind of foreignness of it. It's not part of this culture. I was raised Presbyterian. I'm like, I can't even think of the guy's name, Martin Luther. I don't know. Is that right? Who was he? Calvin. Yeah. See, I didn't learn much. Um, I know one thing: that total deprivation. That's one of the main teachings in which means that you're basically screwed. Remember that part. Anyway, so go ahead. Anybody? You have to speak, or I'm going to start pointing at people. Yes. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay. So put down karma, karmic retribution. All right. In the front row. I'm pointing now. It could be anything. Don't want just put. So the depth of love is, you know, yeah, yeah, love and attachment. That's a good one. All right, Robbie. Hmm. Boring. Good. All right, Donna. Aha. So you reincarnation. How do we say that? Only. Yeah. Okay. Whatever she said. Well, well, good point. Um, I tell you what, my dad, he came to one of my classes. I taught, back in the 80s, I was teaching basically discovering Buddhism, but it was in Greenville, North Carolina, where I'm from, and I was teaching this class at Pitt Tech. I'd figured out how to teach a class there, so my dad showed up. He didn't show up for a couple of classes, but he said he didn't like the idea of coming back and again. Kind of like what you're talking about. He just wanted to be done with it. Yeah. Again and again to liberate all beings. That didn't appeal to him. He just wanted to be, this life was tough enough. Let's get over with it and go to heaven. It's appealing. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. And say, I believe in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. You're going straight up to heaven. Boy, that's attractive. That's a great, we have our own marketing strategy. 3 years, 3 days, and no wait, yeah, 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days you can get enlightened in highest yoga tantra if you practice completion stage. Yeah, that's good. But getting enlightened in 1 second by just saying something is much more appealing. Yeah. Hmm. Mm-hmm. So not enough. Can't do enough. And you're shooting all over yourself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 It's a complex path, isn't it? It's not. It's not. It's very. There's a lot of it that. Well, I don't want to stop yet. So let's get. Oh, go ahead. Oh, she's got more. What now? Uh huh. Right. Okay. Uh huh. Right. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So don't. The bugzooka. That's the answer. But yeah, don't killing, not killing any living being, killing, even insects. That's a hard one. Rodents, rats, mice. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I've been coming here for about 2 years, and I still look around here, and I'm like, what is all of this?
Good.
So it's like all the symbolism and that sort of thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like it would be really nice to have like a gauntlet. Like this is the medicine Buddha, and this is what he does, and this is Green Terra, and
Mm-hmm.
this is Kali Chakra, and this is
Right.
so
Right.
I look up here, I'm like, well, what is the symbolism?
Right.
I know that it's there on the internet. I can go find it somewhere.
Right. Well, that was what I kind of meant by the foreignness of it, because the first time. Anyway, I'm not going to get into my experience. Kathy, what do you say? Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, well, of course.
She might start singing.
So we talk about we're so preoccupied with the deliciousness of things.
Right.
And okay, if it's not delicious, I mean, if it doesn't smell good, feel good, taste good, why would I even pick it up? Um, so I'm confused about, and I think you and I've discussed this before. How do we enjoy ourselves if we're following the practice? And
Buddhism has taken away everything.
it's no fun.
There's no more, no fun.
But yet I see monks, nuns laughing their heads off. I see them having such a fantastic time, and I'm like, all right, was that delicious or what?
Okay, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Any over here? Yeah.
I think part of my conflict is that, culturally, I I want to be able to mourn some some people that have some loved ones that I've lost, which I guess is kind of along the lines of attachment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to me culturally, it's important to mourn the loss of loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
and then coming here, it's no, you shouldn't. Life goes on, and it's okay that they're gone, and it's an internal conflict that
So you're saying Buddhism is saying that you shouldn't mourn the loss of others, and you should just move on,
Right.
which is what you want to do, but
Right.
eventually,
Right.
anyway,
You
through
do
the
want
process of mourning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next to you, you have to make up something.
I guess for me, it's just focusing. That's the hard thing for me to just even getting through the breathing was hard. My brain is very jumpy, so
Right.
yeah.
So just doing the practice. Yeah. As a beginner, too. Right. Doing the practice. Anything?
For me, I think the hardest, well, reincarnation has kind of already been said, but to summarize kind of what someone else said and just say it in a different way is I think spiritual practice becomes the next arena for self-judgment. And kind of some of the teachings, when you already have a negative mind, sometimes you find myself using some of the precepts or teachings to kind of beat myself up, and so I have to like work not to do that and let go of that as well. And there's
Right.
limitless things to let go of. So yeah.
That sort of self-judgment it sounds a little bit like putting yourself down for not, a little bit like guilt. I'm guilty. I did that. I do that. I've done it. I will do it again. Things like that. Yeah. All right. So time's up. So no, I'm just kidding. So is that good? You want to add one on there?
I guess just knowing that you have to start somewhere, kind of thing. Just knowing that you have to start somewhere is kind of, I guess, where all that kind of like, I don't know.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess isn't negative. But
Well, yeah. There's a book out by somebody. What's her name? Pema Chodron. Start where you are. I like that name. I like the title. Okay. We're going to take it individually and collectively take a shot at these things and see if we can. We've got, what time do we have to finish up? 10 after? Quarter after? Quarter after. Okay. Not part of our culture. So I think we talked about that. I will say this. Like my first exposure to Buddhism, I was in Nepal in a Buddhist monastery, and a lot of this that's here and even more was in the room. And I'm a Calvinism person. I'd come from Presbyterian background, but I wasn't really practicing Christianity. I had tried and tried, but I couldn't quite make it work for me. Anyway, so I came into this thing, and I was totally put off by all the iconography, and that's one of the reasons I wore my orange shirt today, just because, if this was a Zen temple, guess what color everything would be? Black. the statue wouldn't be gold, but everything else would be pretty much black. And in Theravada Buddhism, it's sometimes oranges, but it's kind of like saffron. But in Tibetan Buddhism, it's like colors like you wouldn't believe. What is all of this? What are all these statues and graven images and so on? Well, that was a bit of a struggle until I learned what it meant. When you understand that, for example, the Buddhist, when we do prostrations, we're not only paying homage to the teachings, but to our own potential to become enlightened, right? So it's like every practice, everything in this Gampa, every flag, every picture is meant to help us transform our mind. It's meant to be an object for practice. And we could become bewildered by that, thinking that we have to, again, swallow it all at one time, believe it all. So it's taken me, a lot of years, and I still don't understand everything that I see. But the more I understand what these things mean And the more I use them in my practice, the more I see that they're helpful. Some are, some aren't. But, you know, for example, the Buddha, the statue of the Buddha symbolizes enlightened body, and the text enlightened speech, and the stupa over here enlightened mind. So every altar is going to have at least that much symbols of enlightened body, speech, and mind. So, but there's many, much more that could be said about that. All right, karmic retribution. What goes around comes around. It stinks. I mean, it really does. But it's our big job in life is to watch our mind, isn't it? That's our big job, and it's hard work. Now, do you have to watch your mind all the time? No, you don't. You don't have to. But once we have some faith, I mean, and you don't even have to believe in have a belief in karma to realize that if you let your mind just roll on, untethered, and follow its instincts, I mean, that's called samsara. That's the cycle of uncontrolled causation, and it generally leads to more suffering. Most of us, even that call ourselves Buddhist, we take our past, throw it in front of us, and walk right back into it. We do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. It doesn't work. Karma is a very profound part of Buddhism, and it, for me, in this very moment, what it means to me is that whatever is happening to me right now, it's not helpful for me to think, well, in 45 lifetimes ago, I killed an insect, or I lied, or I stole. That's not helpful. What's helpful for me is that every moment, in fact, in this very moment, billions of karmic seeds are ripening from my past that are forcing me to see this room and have an experience that I call my life. And how I deal in this moment is creating the future. So, this is the powerful message in karma, is that we can shape our future by the choices we make. And whatever is happening is a resultant. So if we find ourselves in a great situation, fantastic. That means we did something wonderful in the past. Yay, we should rejoice. If we find ourselves in a big mess, that's also a resultant. Okay, and we can learn from that. We can say, wow, I don't want to do that again. Look at what's happening to me. I got to watch my mind. I need to pay attention. I need to practice the path. I need to avoid killing and stealing and so forth. Now, here's a really interesting point. In any given moment, like right now, right this second, how do you know when what you're doing is going to lead to happiness or suffering? Anybody know the answer to that? How do you know? Because whatever you do now is going to ripen probably in 50,000 lifetimes from now. Let's just say, for example. So, but let's say next life. Yeah. Exactly. So the point is this, you're right on the money. The point is this, our motivation is the key factor in karma, not what we do necessarily. What we do is important because it's very difficult to kill out of compassion, isn't it? Very difficult to kill or steal and say, I'm doing that for their good, or whatever, or I'm doing it for the goodness, for the benefit of all. But our motivation in the moment is the key factor in karma. And so if we check and see if our action is motivated by non-attachment, non-hatred, or non-ignorance, it will always lead to happiness. We will be forced at some point in the future to see ourselves as happy, because what goes around comes around. Karma will eventually ripen. It does not waste it. And if we're motivated by greed and hatred and ignorance and so forth, the delusions, we will be forced to see ourselves as suffering. But it's a resultant, and it can be a hard thing to accept, because it's really meant for us to work with it ourselves. But when you see a newborn baby, in the intensive care unit with tubes coming out of every orifice and the kid's dying. And you go, well, what did that kid do to deserve that? And you can't, that's not helping your mind. But from the worldview of karma, everything is a resultant. It's not personal. The fact that we're suffering, karma's like gravity. Bam. You kill, you'll get killed. You steal, people will steal from you. If you commit adultery, you'll have lousy relationships and people will cheat on you. If you lie, people will lie to you. And it's not personal. It feels like there's no God. The God in Buddhism is the laws of nature. This is the creative force. It's impersonal. It's not about you or your personality. It's just, and that's a very hard thing for some people to. Mm-hmm.
There's no control. It just, or it has to do with your behavior from another.
Yeah.
And it helps you accept it.
And we see other people misbehaving and doing stupid things, and we think, they're the product of all of their former conditioning. They're literally being used by their karma. And give them some space to be stupid and make mistakes and not be so critical and judgmental and forgive. It could help that. Yes. Well, here's the deal. Till you get enlightened, you're always going to be motivated by self-interest. But there is such a thing as enlightened self-interest, which is doing things for others because you understand karma. You understand that if you do something selflessly, to the degree that you're able to do that, obviously if you give a gift to somebody and you think, okay, now where's mine? That's not the same thing as giving it and saying, I don't want anything in return. So to the degree that we're able to give selflessly, that's the point in generosity. But, feeling bad about, what did you say again? Feeling guilty about feeling good. Oh my God, that's too convoluted. I can't go there. That's a hard one. Let's move along because we're never going to get through any more of these things. This one up here leads, what is the one about deliciousness? Oh, enjoyment, because that's the important thing. I think, attachment and so forth. We might need to do this. Enjoyment, yikes. All right. Addicted. So it looks like Buddhism is saying that we can't have fun. And I'm out of here if we can't have fun. Addicted to Ajahn Buddhadasa. He's a great Thai Buddhist saint. He said, these are his words, addicted to deliciousness. I love that concept. That's how we are, isn't it? I mean, be honest. We want everything that's good, and we don't want anything that's bad. All right? Yeah. For you, deliciousness is discipline. So deliciousness is anything that's desirable. Anything, and it's kind of like, but we're talking about an obsession here. That's what's causing the problem. Obsessing about delicious things. I will have to tell you a story here real quick. How do you spell obsessing? That's close enough. Anyway, obsessing. So I have a 6-year-old daughter, and when she was in preschool, she had a boyfriend named Ben, and they used to lie on cots together when they were 4 and hold hands and stuff like this. And now she's in the 1st grade, and I saw that Ben was in her classroom, and I said, Annabelle, I see that Ben's in your classroom. Kind of trying to get her going a little bit. She said, "This is a 6-year-old." She said, "Oh, I don't obsess about him anymore." That's what we're talking about, obsessing. I think there are 2 S's here. Anyway, obsessing about things that are deliciousness. So here's the problem with obsession, isn't it? And it's instinctive, because as long as we have an I, we project the false sense of I. Now, Buddhism is not saying that, for those of you who are new, Buddhism is saying we don't exist. Buddhism is saying we don't exist the way we think we exist. There is an I. Don't get me wrong. There's a body and a mind, and based on the collection of those two, we're just an I. We're just a self. But what do? Ignorance inflates it like a big inflatable slide, inflates the sense of I since it's bigger than the world. And then anything that's pleasurable, delicious, what do we want? We want it. We got to have it. And the more we addicted to it, guess what? When we don't have it, how do we feel? Terrible. And when we lose it, we're miserable. So it's like we can't win. And even when we get what we want, we can't thoroughly enjoy it because we're clinging on to it so tightly. We're like, so it's not that sex and drugs and rock and roll and having fun and going to Disney World and going to a party and listening to good music and having a good meal and being with friends. The Buddha never said there was anything wrong with that. Lama Yeshe used to say, hey, Buddhism, people think it's about, suffering and giving up everything. And he said, no, you got it all wrong. It's about having a great time. It's about having the best time. But how can you have a good time when all you're doing is creating the causes for more suffering? We have to think about what we're doing. So we can, there's a teaching called the 8 Worldly Dharmas, and they kind of distill everything that's positive into pleasure, gain, fame, and praise. Okay, those are sort of the things that, generally speaking, we're attracted to, or we find delicious. So we want those things, right? So when we get pleasure, yes, but again, because we're clinging, we can't really enjoy it fully. When we don't have pleasure, I want pleasure, so we're looking for it, and when we get pain, oh my God, it's even worse. If we have, if you go see people that, like the Tibetans or Eskimos, or people that have a really tough life, they have their pain threshold is unbelievable. I remember lancing a abscess in a Tibetan guy one time, and he said, don't worry about the xylocaine. And so I just took a knife and whoosh, lanced this abscess on his face, and he didn't even flinch, because this guy lives at 15,000 feet above sea level, and he's a rough life. He's not addicted to pleasure like I am. So again, it's not that having pleasure or any of it is a problem. Having sex, having fun, going places, doing whatever you want to do, it's your business. But the more we cling, the more we have some sort of addiction or obsession about it, the more we're going to suffer. That's all. So if we can live in the moment and experience the experience without clinging, then we're not creating suffering or as much suffering. We also have to be honest about what we can do. Like, I've seen this happen over the years because I've been involved in Buddhism for so many years. I've seen a lot of Western people like, oh, this makes so much sense. I love Buddhism, and I'm practicing it. It helps me, so I'm just going to give up everything. I'm gonna give up my belongings. I'm gonna become a monk or a nun or whatever. I've seen hundreds of people do that, and I've seen hundreds of people burn out doing that. Like becoming monastics, which is another problem area for people, right? Being that you have to be a monk or a nun to really. They say, Venerable George, is Buddhism all or none? And Venerable George said, no, it's monk or none. Anyway, so you get, does that kind of touch on that? Do you get a sense of what I'm talking about? It's not that pleasures or any of that's bad or wrong. It's just we can see it. The more we obsess, the more we suffer. So what's the antidote to attachment, this kind of afflictive attachment or obsessing? What's the antidote to it? If it's squeezing, it's letting go. It's letting go of the attachment. How do you do that? Wow, that takes a lifetime of practice. But we can do it. That's the claim of Buddhism. That's liberation. Every moment that you have a thought in your mind and you're obsessing about somebody or something, or you're angry about something, in that moment you're clinging to that thought and you say, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm clinging. And you watch it and it changes and then it disappears and you let go. That's a moment of liberation, isn't it? That's a moment of freedom. Things are impermanent. So if we can just be patient with the processes of our mind, things clear out. But as long as we obsess, we're stuck. Help me here. What's another? I should have gone like this. Okay, now everybody clap. Which one is the next one overwhelming. Who had a burnt? Which one was burnt? It's like a mourning losses, by the way. Absolutely, I was in Dharamsala, India, working. This is in northern India, working at a Tibetan refugee hospital when one of the Dalai Lama's brothers died. And I was living in a guest house that was run by another one of the Dalai Lama's brothers. And his wife used to come down when I was eating dinner, and I used to talk to her sometimes. And because they were going up to His Holiness's, where he lived, the Dalai Lama. And I said, is he sad? Is he crying? Blah blah blah. And she said, he's been affected by it, but he's not maudlin. He's not like weeping. So my suspicion is if you live your life with an unrealistic expectation that things are going to last forever, then you're really shocked when you lose things. But if you have trained your mind over a lifetime that things are constantly in a state of flux and deterioration, and that nothing is going to last, everything is like change, that the process of grieving goes quicker. It's much easier to let go of the pain of it. And so she felt like he had worked through the grief very quickly. That was what she was telling me, because he wasn't standing around. But anyway, so I think grieving, we all have to do it at our own pace, but there's nothing wrong about grieving. It's just, but what is grief? It's holding on to a sadness, isn't it? It's the mind clinging to something that's sad. To the degree that we want to be happy, to that degree we don't want to be sad, right? So when we're clinging to happiness, we're also clinging to not being sad. You see what I'm saying? It's just the flip side of the coin. So when we're sad, we're going to hold on to that. And letting go of that is important at some point. It's a choice, but there's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong with having grief. It just doesn't have to last 6 years or 3 months. It could last 3 minutes if you've trained your whole life to let go and move, and be in the present moment. Yeah. Killing insects. Oh my gosh. I've got to call Bob the critter getter. No, it's a really tough one. Killing anything is a tough issue. Donna, am I done? Killing, pardon? Yeah, so we need to wrap it up. Killing is doing any kind of non-virtuous, what's considered to be a non-virtuous action. And insects seem to be pretty low on the food chain or the life chain, in terms of and microbes and so on and so forth. It's a tough one, and so if you have cockroaches in your house, or if you've got a tick. I mean, look at all the tick-borne illnesses now. It's pretty bad. So these insects, some of them are carrying diseases, and they're in our house, and rodents and so forth. I think what I can say about that is, if there's a way to get rid of them without killing them, do it. And that's all I'm going to say. But we have, in my house, and I gave Geshe-la one of these. It's called a bug-zooka. Have you ever seen it? No, it's a bug. It's a little thing that has a like a spring on it. It looks like an accordion, but it's round. And you push it down, and it's a long tube with a little gadget on the end of it. And so when we find insects, we go down with the bug-zooka, go, and it sucks them up into this little chamber, and then we take them outside. Now, if I had 1,000 ants, I'm sorry, Bob the Critter Getter is coming, and we're getting rid of those guys. But that's me. I'm not telling you to do that. But if there's another way to get rid of ants without killing them, I think I had a friend who had rodents, like a lot of mice in her house, and she would catch one at a time and carry them a couple of miles down the beach or something and liberate them. And one time I was in a retreat house, and it had mice, and every morning I'd catch one or two, and this guy named Chuck Thomas would bring me food, and then I would put the mice in the cage, and Chuck would take them 2 miles down the road and get rid of them, because you don't want to. So you look for alternatives. If you can, that's great. If you can't, then you have to do the right thing. You have to do what's best for your health and your family's health. That's how I would say it. This is not. I'm not speaking for the Geshe Gelik or the Kadampa Center. Sarah's going to get me, I'm sure. Yeah, like what is the karmic cause of having a bunch of living in a nasty place with a bunch of critters? Be useful to think about that too. So this is a good conversation. I'm glad we talked about it. Any parting shots? By the way, I'll stick around, and I'm not going anywhere. I got to do this. I get to do this again. But if your question didn't get answered, or if you want to talk about something else, I'll sit around. But let's do the dedication verses, please. I think there's a pink sheet at the top of the pink sheet. We'll do the master, verses from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, and as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So this is collectively and individually, but collectively it's very powerful to practice in a group, much more than practicing alone. So the fact that you got up early this morning and everybody looks pretty clean for the most part, cleaned yourself up and came here to do, to practice together. We created some positive energy, and so we're dedicating it not only to our happiness, because we're part of all sentient beings, aren't we? But to all sentient beings' happiness. So that's the kind of attitude we want to have. So these are merits. What we've done is create merit, guaranteed will ripen into happiness. Guaranteed. Positive merit ripens into happiness. So we can rejoice that we did this. And thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yes, you do.
No, you just need to be like,
Yeah.
I'll tell him you're
Okay.
You want to be the microphone passer?
I'm going out to help with the class.
No, you're not. You're,
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
look, I've got work for you.
It is? Yeah. Whoops. So the children will be with us for a few minutes. It's Geshe likes to have the children do the mantras too, because they're young and sort of pure. They haven't been around long enough to have the baggage that most of us adults have. So they're saying the mantras really is very powerful. Has a real positive beneficial effect for all of us. So the Tayata, the first mantra, Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra, I was explaining it earlier today. It's kind of like if you're a cook and you've done a reduction, and then you do another reduction of the reduction, and another reduction of that reduction. all the Buddha's teachings can be reduced into this line. Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Soha. So we're going to do that mantra, and if focus the mind, and it has a vibration, and it has, these are sacred words and sounds. So just, as much as you can, be open to that possibility. And we'll do that together. Then we'll do the 4 measurables in English. And then, Jill, if you could help us. Was that an insect? Oh, bless your heart. God, he's saving a life. Yata O Mune Mune Maha Munaye So Tayata O Mune Mune Maha Munaye So Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye So. Is that 7? Is that all we do is 3? I didn't know. It doesn't matter. Okay, we'll do 4 measurables. We know there are 4 of these. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And I definitely need help with this. Enchantan che de weadang de we gyudang dampar gyujik dugnya dang dug Gelgi Gudang Drewar Gyoshik Dunya Mepe Dewa Dong Mi Drewar Gyoshik Nering Chadang Nidan Drewe Tanyam Lane Pargyuchik. Now we can do Chenrezig's mantra 7 times. Oh, 8 times? Okay. Hang on a minute, I'm going to count these. Okay, you want to do this? Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 So that's the mantra of the Buddha of compassion. And this is Green Tara, is the mantra of the Buddha. She represents compassion, but action, compassionate action. So as we do this mantra, think of that meaning, but focus on the sound and the words. Okay. Om Tari Du Re So Ha. 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 Da re do re so ha. Okay, so the children may leave now, or yeah, yeah. All right, let's start out with meditation. Yeah, and we'll do. If you've not, has anybody here never meditated at all? Anybody like never done it? Well, it's real simple. What I'm going to teach is very simple. All you have to do is be able to count to 21. You'll be lucky to. You probably won't have to count much past 5, but if you make it to 21, great. But we're going to focus on the breath, and you can focus on the entire experience of breathing, or just the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose, or the rising and falling of the abdomen. But it's going to be out. You'll breathe out quietly, like that, but don't make noise like I did. Breathe out, just following the breath. We're not forcing it out, forcing it in, forcing it out, forcing it in. Just breathe out and in, and then like mentally note 1, out, in, mentally note 2, out, in. And if you get up to 21, fantastic. But most of us will get lost after 3 breaths and then have to go back to the beginning, which is fine. So we'll do that, out in 1, out in 2, and so forth. And again, here's the main instruction. I can't hear this enough personally, and I've been trying to do this for years. But if your mind gets distracted, and it will, by thoughts, because as we pointed out earlier, this is boring. Following your breath is not interesting. Unless you understand the benefits of it, it is boring. So your mind is going to go off after your mind is going to chase something that's interesting, or that you're attached to, or you're blah blah blah. And so our job is to follow the breath, and then when the mind goes off, which it will, and it may take you may be gone for 5 minutes before you realize you're gone. You gently bring the mind back and place it on the breath again, and then you continue the process. Start back at 1, out in 1, out in 2, like that, and you bring it back, and you bring it back, and you bring it back as many times as you can. And that is the crucial. That is meditation. It's literally the bringing back of the mind. But you have to be alert, and you have to have mindfulness of the breath. So this is a good practice for us. And if your mind goes away, are you bad and wrong? No. We don't know how to do this. We haven't trained our minds. So don't judge yourself. Be very neutral about this, and bring it back as many times as you need to. So we'll do this for about an hour. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So if you're walking along a path with a child and the child wanders off the path, you might gently but firmly bring the child, take the child by the hand and lead it back onto the path. That's the same attitude that we need to have with our mind. Gently but firmly bring the mind back and refocus it on the experience of breathing without any judgment. So the many motivations that you could have for practicing, for doing anything really, but particularly when you're doing spiritual practice. It could be you just want to, for most of us, it's pretty much limited to this life. We just want to be able to cope and, make it through the day and be a happier person and not be so angry and stressed out and depressed and whatever. Handle difficulties. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a motivation that's like about 1,000,000,000 times more powerful than that one. And it's not natural to think this way, but it's the motivation that we aim to in Mahayana Buddhism. And that is that we want to set our goal, set our sights on developing all of our good qualities: compassion, wisdom, um, skillful means, like what to say and do in any situation to be helpful, and power. These are the main qualities of an enlightened being. We want to develop those qualities as fully developed, and we want to eliminate every single mistake of the mind. Seems impossible, doesn't it? But that's the goal. It's like the tip of Mount Everest, right? We want to get, that's the mountain we want to climb, and we want to do it for others, which normally we think, I'm doing it for my own sake. But in Mahayana Buddhism, the goal is is to achieve full enlightenment for others' sake, for the benefit of all beings. It's so antithetical to our normal, egocentric, self-centered way of thinking. That's why it's so powerful. As much as you can, set your mind with this kind of motivation that we're here today to listen and think about the teachings and analyze them and see what works for us, and to sort of develop ourselves further along our own path in order to be able to more perfectly serve others. And if you want to distill it down to one sentence, Lama Yeshe used to say, as much as I can, I dedicate my life to others. As much as I can, I dedicate my life to others. That's the essence of it. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. My name is Don Brown. I'm one of the people that teaches Discovering Buddhism, and I'm an old timer. That's a fair statement, isn't it? I've been around the Kadampa Center for many years, and I've been studying Buddhism for a long time, 30-some years. So not every day, and I'm not a great example. That's the bad news. Geshe-la's not here. He's like the living, example of the teaching. So we have these Westerners, like I guess Robbie will be up here in a couple. He's much more enlightened than I am. But having people who are like living examples of the teachings is so helpful. That's why we have to pray that Geshe will come back soon, healthy, and But anyway. Lama Yeshe used to say that for beginners, he felt like that Westerners were good for other beginners. So I'm kind of an advanced beginner, but I can still consider myself a beginner. So we're going to talk today about some things that people, I think, and I'd like to address things that people struggle with, basically, in Buddhism. There was Jill, I'm going to need you again at the board. Yeah. So, the Buddha taught that, it's sad because we don't know what the Buddha taught, do we? We have the books. So, but we're going to say the Buddha taught that he said, you should examine my teachings carefully, like somebody who's assaying gold would assay it. They chop it up in little pieces and put different acids. Is this really gold or is it fool's gold? Test it out. Test it. Make sure it is what it is. Make sure, from the perspective of the Dharma, make sure it makes sense to you. It's logical. It helps your mind. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm others. And if the teachings are like that for you, then you might want to work with it in your life. And it was maybe a new reality for you to think about. So with that being said, notice that we said things I don't like about Buddhism. We didn't put Kadampa Center in here. But it's not the time to. This is more time to focus on like what are you struggling with? The word I don't like is not what I really wanted to say. So things that you're struggling with, and I'll start it off because the last session I said, when I first got in, walked into to a Tibetan Gampa many years ago, it was so foreign. It was like all this iconography and all the colors, and I even wore my Tibetan Buddhist shirt today, all the colors and everything were kind of off-putting to me, and the monks too. The strangeness of everything, because I was raised Presbyterian. Anybody know what that means? Anyway, I was not a very good Presbyterian, but could we just write down the sort of what's the right word, like foreignness of it? Don't write too big. We're gonna hopefully we'll come up with a list. Now, is there a microphone? Where's the mic? Because I want people to. I'm in a point. We'll have it. We're not going to let this go on forever, but we'll probably, if we can come up with 10 good points. Okay, well, I'll repeat it for the streamers at home. I guess it was streamed, didn't it? I don't know. All right, so foreignness. Okay, who over here in this first couple of rows? In the back, yes. List. Oh, I love it. Thank you we were talking about that. The lists. Countless lists. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. And you're right. You will never be a good Buddhist if you can't remember those. There are lots of lists. Yes. All right. Come on over here. I need this side of the room to show up. All right. All right. Well, let's see. We can say giving up. Let's just say it another way. Can't have fun. Buddhism seems to be saying, oh, we can't have fun. We have to give up our attachment. And attachment looks like our friend, doesn't it? It does. Attachment looks like a friend. Anger is easy to see as an enemy, but attachment's very difficult. Yeah. Joey? Yeah. So daily practice and what to practice. Okay? Yeah, it's a little confusing because nobody. Yeah. Okay. The back rows back here, we have to see some hands coming up. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, emptiness. I still don't know what it
Confusing.
is.
Emptiness is confusing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. It is. Next row. Yes.
You have a mic now? Is it on? That I have to take personal responsibility for everything. Like I can't blame anyone anymore for why things aren't working.
Okay. That has to do with karma, doesn't it? Personal responsibility / karma. Yeah. Anybody? How about the next row? There's some people there that I'm sure. Wait a minute now. All right. Wait a minute. Okay. We're jumping around now. It's okay.
I think one thing that is confusing or is hard to deal with is self-forgiveness, because when you fail to be kind or fail to be to not attach yourself or with the resentment.
Self-forgiveness. Great question.
I'm very new to Buddhism, and I have a question about kindness and when is it always, I guess in my personal life, sometimes I struggle with always being kind and then people taking advantage of me, and when to put your foot down and be kind but not let people step on you. And where that line is, because sometimes I tend to extremes where I'm very, very soft and kind and let people take and take and take, and then I'm like, no! And I get very firm and angry, and there's the middle ground that I'm trying to find.
Thank you. That's a great question. We probably won't get to that one. Isn't it? No, it's a great question. Yeah, these are great. Let's see. What's that hand, David?
So my question would be, I think overall the concepts of Buddhism are wonderful and they have helped me a great deal, but I really cannot understand daily practice, as in sitting on a cushion, meditating, or saying mantras. I have tried it some, and it just does not seem to do anything for me. My mind does not seem different. I don't seem to feel any better or worse, and I'm kind of mystified about what it does for other people. I assume it must do something for some of the people. That's my
daily practice is not yielding results.
That is correct.
That. Okay, thank you.
The daily practice actually comes in our daily walk, and every opportunity, every interaction with another human being, we have the opportunity to practice.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I struggle too with sitting on the cushion, and I think what I've tried to do more is in every single interaction take the opportunity to practice.
Yeah. So daily, the trying to make daily practice work. And next, we got a few more. Let's get like maybe 3 or 4 more, and then we'll try to have some open discussion about this.
It's that Buddhism is like a 1,000,000-page book. It feels like there's books about books.
About books.
Yeah, there's like the distilled book is still a massive book. It just feels to me like if there was a way to kind of really boil it down into like the Cliff Notes, it would be a lot. Yeah. But still gets to the heart of the practice. Like it just feels like there's just like the Discovering Buddhism class is like a 2-year class, and then there's like another class after that class, and then I think there's like another class after that class. Just a way to make it maybe this is another derivation of the massive lists, but just more. It seems like it's so spread everywhere.
It's vast.
Yeah. Buddhism
is vast. Where do we start? Okay.
It's not terribly off-putting, but the iconography is a little tough for me sometimes. All the statues and flags and lotus flowers.
Stupas and like what is all that about? That goes back to my first thing, but similar. Yeah, that iconography and stuff like that. Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things to me coming to Buddhism is the lack of female lamas and tulkus and leaders.
Mm-hmm. You haven't met Venerable Rabina yet, have you?
Well, I know of her, but I haven't been lucky enough to
Oh,
meet
you
her.
should
But
be
I
here.
have had some very good female teachers. I think starting out, I just noticed it was predominantly male-led, like the other religions I'd come from.
Yeah. That's a good one. Good point. Anybody else? Okay. Actually, I think it's good just to write them down, even if we don't. I mean, let people bring them up, even if we don't get to talk about everything. Go ahead.
This is not as deep as everything. This is more superficial than the others, but I'm not physically able to sit cross-legged, so I feel like I'm missing out on something.
Okay, and you are. Sore knees.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay.
Um, there's a lot of ritual sayings every time we meet, and I'd like to know more about the English version of that. You know, I've delved into Om Mani Padme Hum some, and it's changed when I'm doing a mala. It's changed my intention. It's changed the spirit in which I do that. Even if I can't remember what each individual word means, having studied that some, it changes it. So just knowing what some of the typical things that we say in Tibetan language, what they mean.
Okay. So far, yeah. I share that, by the way. I'm particularly the Tibetan. I have a lot of resistance just to stuff in Tibetan. Okay. Anything else? Any burning ones? Yes.
I would say another thing that's kind of confusing is the things that you're supposed to be doing. If you're not doing, then you have to do purifications, and you don't know where in the world you're going with that.
So the thing, when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you have to do purification. Yes, it is. Yeah.
The changing concept of spirit or God.
Like where's God in Buddhism kind of thing? Is that what you're saying? Coming from a theistic background, like to Buddhism where it's non-theistic, like how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Good point. Gosh, that was one of my hang-ups for, it still is in a sense, but I've made peace with it. But that's really good. Good point.
I think that when you're raised in America and you don't have all these different religions that are foreign to us, that this becomes foreign because of the packages that we are sold. And that if you don't go along with the socialized package, therefore you are supposed to feel guilty because you've chosen something different.
Yeah, exactly. We're really the first and second generations of Buddhists in this country. And so we're definitely automatically an outlier, And for some people, they're very uncomfortable being labeled outliers. So yeah, it's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Wait a minute. We need to use the mic. Sorry.
Kind of adding to that, there's a stereotype with Buddhists. If you tell someone that you're becoming a Buddhist, or they automatically think you're going to shave your head and start wearing robes.
Yeah.
So there's a negativity stereotype with Buddhism here in the Western culture, I think.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. A cult-like feel. Yeah. Oh, that's enough for now. Robbie, would you like to start the conversation by answering? Robbie's going to jump in and help me out if I get stuck on any of this. Can you see? All right. Joey's got good eyes with his glasses on. Okay, so I don't want to, I may jump around, but the foreignness of it is just what we have to get used to, isn't it? Lama Yeshe, who's the founder of the FPMT, the gentleman just to the left of the Dalai Lama, and he and Lama Zopa were my first two teachers, and he used to say, because he has students all over the world, he said, when you go to Italy, make it Italian Buddhism. Forget about Tibetan Buddhism. If you go to for America, it's American Buddhism. And those of you who were in the basement, how many people ever went to the basement before we moved here? Now but that basement was like designed to be American Buddhist. This is much more Tibetan Buddhist because we didn't have a teacher at the time. And so we put, the walls were Linda, I can't think of her last name, but she was an interior designer. She picked out all the colors. She painted the walls like 5 times until she got the color just right, and there was a gold leaf and blah blah blah, and just it was quite beautiful, but it was much less foreign. But still, we got the statues and everything. And and I'll say this. Everything that we have here at Kadampa Center that looks strange to you, I could probably, or somebody else, or Geshe Samba could explain to you what the symbolic meaning is. But it's all meant to be helpful for our practice. And so if you see it and you go, that's off-putting, which I did that. You know, you're talking about the iconography and stuff. That's off-putting. It's only because we don't know what it means, probably. And so over time, even ritual, even the prayers in Tibetan, I still wish everything was in English because I don't speak Tibetan. And but Geshe has the final say-so, so I go along with it. But you know, it doesn't help my mind to read things in Tibetan. Mantras are in Sanskrit. I understand the point of doing mantras in Sanskrit. But anyway, so there is going to be some resistance in the beginning, I think, for just mentally coming from a Judeo-Christian background, and you walk in here and you go, wow, look at all the colors and this. And I think if, you know, we have newcomer sessions and stuff like that, and there are opportunities to ask questions about the iconography and find out what it means. For example, you know, this is a symbolic of the enlightened body. Okay, and the stupa is symbolic of enlightened mind, and the texts are symbolic of enlightened speech, and Tara is symbolic of active compassion, and so on. And there are water bowl offerings that we put up because there's plenty of water, and we can give without attachment. So everything that's up there is meant to be used for practice and to help us transform our mind. And I invite you to look at it that way, and if you don't understand it, ask questions. And also enough. Massive lists, and I can sort of fold that into also how complicated Buddhism is. First of all, our minds are pretty complicated. There are they say there are 84,000 delusions, so there's 84,000 remedies for those delusions. So talk about a list. That's a real list. But yeah, so there are a lot of lists. What do you think the point of the lists are? Just guessing. I mean, you're really supposed to. It's an oral tradition, yeah. 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 These lists, there's different, like for suffering, there's the list of 3 and 6 and the 8 sufferings, you know, and then of course there's many more, but there are different lists for us to contemplate. And ideally, in the beginning you read the list, you might say, okay, there's the suffering of pain, and then there's the suffering of change, and then there's the suffering called pervasive suffering. That's the list of 3. And we try to memorize those 3. And then in meditation, we try to analyze those in more depth. Then we go to the list of 6, you know, and then if we've memorized them, it's supposed to be an aid to meditation. But sometimes it's bewildering. So we take it as much as we can. It's like, again, I want to make sure that people get it. There's not a lot of shoulds in Buddhism. You don't have to memorize the list. You can write them down. But it is a natural way to learn, and it's very difficult. It's meant, memorizing the list and meditating on the list is meant to transform our mind. Okay? So, for example, meditating on suffering not only helps us get in touch with our own suffering, but have compassion for others. That's the point. So the list have a bigger point. And then we talk about how vast Buddhism is. Well, let me think. I heard a number one time. I can't remember, but when Atisha and when in the early days when they were bringing Buddhism from India to Tibet, there were thousands and thousands of text. It was unbelievable how many mountains of text. You know, the Christians have one book, a Bible, and that's kind of cryptic. But in Buddhism, look, this is just the beginning. This is called this is the Sumbum and the Kumbum. These are the Buddha's words and commentaries and Lama Tsongkhapa, and there's way more than that. But guess what? It's all been distilled into the Lam Rim. That's the cool thing. The Lam Rim are the stages to the path to enlightenment. This is what you need to know to transform your mind. You need to know, the meditations on renunciation, meditations on bodhicitta, on emptiness, the lower, the beings with the lower capabilities, the middling and the superior capabilities, and so on. It really has been packaged, even though it looks like a big package, it's been packaged in the Lam Rim. And so that's the beauty of Tibetan Buddhism, is it is so vast, but it's been packaged by Lama Tsongkhapa, actually Atisha in the Lamp to the Path, and then Lama Tsongkhapa sort of expanded on that. So it's really amazing that we have this and it's not that hard. We can understand these steps to the path, and people that practice it, and that practice it conscientiously, can actually see their mind shift, can see a positive shift. Why? And the reason I know that is I've had some small benefit, but I mean, this thing wouldn't be alive now if it didn't bring some results. Buddhism's been an oral tradition that's 2,500 years old. It goes from teacher to disciple all the way back to the Buddha. So it's an unbroken lineage. So it's kind of, and then the Lam Rim is the way we can make sense of it, because it is vast. Emptiness is confusing. Emptiness. Here's the way to make emptiness easy. No, it's not either. I don't know how to make emptiness easy, but here I can tell you this. Here's the way to make it practical. Here's the way to make it practical. In Buddhism, I mean, we can pretty much all see that, for example, when everybody's looking at this glass or this cup of water, and we instinctively think that we're all seeing it the same. Wouldn't you say that's true? Everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, that's a cup of water." Everybody's seeing the same cup. If a dog came in, he wouldn't necessarily see a cup of water, would he? He might see something to play with or to break. So but in fact, everybody has their own interpretation or having a slightly different experience of this object. You're all having a slightly different experience of what I'm saying and your experience of Kadampa Center. But we think that how we see it is the way it is. We're quite arrogant about that. When in fact, what's actually happening is our mind is like a projector in our head. Our mind is, objects come into our field of vision, for example, or hearing, taste, touch, whatever sense faculty it is. But let's just talk about vision. Objects come into our field of vision, and we immediately project onto that object our interpretation. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? Does it come from, it comes from our culture, it comes from our, blah, 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 but it's our karma. That's what is creating the projection, the interpretation. So we are all having our unique karmic projection of reality. Do you get that? It's very important that we're not all having the same life. We're having a unique life that's the resultant of our former actions that are forcing us to see the world a certain way. There is no inherently existent out there reality that exists independent of my mind projecting it. There is no reality out there. So here's one this is the way I see it. I mean, it's a quick way to see it. It's not very profound, but it might be helpful. It's as if we're walking into a movie theater and there's a blank screen, nothing on there, and then the projector in our head forces us to see the movie called My Life. Okay? The world things are empty of any inherent, objective, out there, independent existence that exists independent of my mind projecting it. Okay? Now that's not that hard to see that. I think we can all have some sense about that. But where's that coming from? Where are the karmic seeds coming from that are the projector? They're coming from our former actions. They're coming from our former actions, virtue and non-virtue. So if you want to be forced to see yourself as suffering, you have no choice. In the moment the dentist hits your third molar nerve, you can't call that pleasure. When the karma is forcing you to have a projection of your life, either painful or pleasant or whatever, it is happening and you can't change it in that moment. But the way you deal with your moments of mind has everything to do with what the future is going to look like. So again, if we want to have a karmic, because there's no objective reality independent of our mind, and because karma creates the seeds that ripen into our experience, if we're smart, we practice virtue because we want to be forced to see ourselves basically in paradise, don't we? And we don't want to see ourselves suffering. There is no inherent objective reality independent of my mind projecting it. So again, virtue is the source of happiness, and non-virtue, this is not a moral conversation we're having. This is common sense. And at some level, if you believe in karma, that what goes around comes around. So if I train myself in anger and jealousy and pride, it's not surprising that I see the world as a place that's unworkable and that I don't have a lot of friends. And if I train myself in compassion and kindness, I might become a doormat, once in a while, but probably going to have more friends. I'm going to be somebody that people feel safe around because they know I'm not going to pull a rug out from under them or stab them in the back and so on. So this is one way to think about emptiness. This is where emptiness really hits the road, and ethics depends upon understanding that I'm not the center of the universe. So emptiness again, selflessness. True compassion is not an act of self-centered selfishness. It's not. So all the delusions, I'm not be able to go into this anymore, but all the delusions are completely uprooted by the correct view of the world or emptiness. The wisdom of emptiness is the tap root for anger, jealousy, pride, you name it. All the things that destroy our happiness, the delusions, are all caused by our egocentric, self-centered attitude, and that's completely uprooted by the correct view of selflessness, emptiness. So that's all I'm going to say. But that's kind of a quick and dirty, down to earth. Okay, go ahead. Right, one more.
How do you see emptiness, though? Is there emptiness meditation, or?
Yeah, there are emptiness meditations that there's different meditations that you do. There's a lot of studying that you do, but here's the deal: you won't see emptiness unless you're in a meditative state until you become enlightened. You can't see emptiness directly while your eyes are open and while your senses are open. You can't experience it. You have to do it in deep meditative equipoise on emptiness, where nothing appears. So this is a little tricky, but there are definite meditations that will help us develop a gradual understanding and experience of emptiness. And then before we can actually have a direct experience of emptiness, we can live we gradually learn to live as if emptiness were the way it was. So we don't take things so seriously, and we don't take ourselves so seriously, and we don't get, so wrapped up in egocentric trips. That's the take-home message. Yeah. Now let's do another one. What about? There was one about forgiveness that I thought was really good. What was your? Self-forgiveness. Who wants to say something about that? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, you have high expectations. You don't live up to your expectations, and you beat yourself up, right?
It's kind of hard to be compassionate to others if you can't be compassionate with yourself. You got to start the practice somewhere, and I'm the only person I'm with all of the time.
Mm-hmm. So how do you have compassion for yourself?
Awareness of emptiness.
That's good, but that's not easy, is it? Yeah. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
The way I have compassion for myself is I try to look at myself as another person because I'm hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if I think of myself, if I try to take a step back and say, if I was myself speaking to myself, would I be as hard on me as I am? Right. No, I wouldn't. I'd be forgiving. I'd be understanding. I would, try to be compassionate, and so it's almost like taking a step back
mm-hmm.
and looking at myself from outside
mm-hmm.
as another person.
I read somewhere where sometimes it's easier to forgive others if you view them as a child. And
mm-hmm.
in that sense of, and if you put that on yourself, viewing yourself for your inner child, because it's easier to forgive a child for doing something than it is, to forgive another adult, because you have that judgment and that pre-notions of what they are. But to look at a child and forgive them
mm-hmm.
for doing something is much easier. So if you sort of, I guess, tap into your inner child, and it would be easier to forgive yourself, and if you look at yourself that way too.
Mm-hmm. So what is the result of forgiveness? I mean, what are we looking for when we say forgiveness? What is that? Once you've forgiven yourself, what has actually happened to you in your mind? What's actually happened? Yeah. Well, I'm going to say we've let go, haven't we? But we've let go in a very profound way. That's some sort of healing. Would you say the word healing would be just, here? It's like some sort of, I guess to use the Christian term, redemption. Yeah, some sort of healing has taken place when we can let go. But how do we get there? How do we get there? That's the big question. Now, some people bring up the question, well, how does understanding emptiness make, but how do you understanding emptiness cause us to be more compassionate? And that's a good question, because, you think, well, I mean, nothing exists inherently and everything is a projection of the mind, and so how does that make me more compassionate? Well, the teachings say that a Buddha, for example, sees sentient beings as so deluded. We are so caught up in appearances and believing in appearance. It's not that we see things a certain way, but we believe in the appearances that we have. And then we get drug into all kinds of drama, attachment, aversion, anger, jealousy, all that stuff. And so a Buddha's heart just literally weeps because he sees how sentient beings are so deluded because we see things in a perverted, we hallucinate our reality, believe in it, and cause tremendous problems for ourselves and others. And so a Buddha has amazing compassion for sentient beings because he sees how we cause our own suffering. He understands, she understands that. So that's part of it. And I think here's another thing about self-forgiveness. It is a process of letting go. And you might say, well, I okay, let's just say, okay, let's because probably somebody in here's committed adultery. Let's say I committed adultery. Okay, all right, and you're beating yourself up about having done the wrong thing, and shamed yourself and your family and the other person, blah blah blah. Bad news, and you're a bad person for doing that. And your conversation really is quite a put down, and you feel guilty, right? So in Buddhism, guilt, there's no room for guilt. Guilt is not an appropriate response to poisoning yourself. Regret is, but guilt is not. So guilt keeps that negativity and the shame of it all in place, doesn't it? If you drink poison, you don't feel guilty. You go, you want to get rid of it. So regret is a proper reaction to something we've done. But self-forgiveness, how do I let go? How do I let go? And I think this really boils down to either if you're really good, you can just let go. And that is the essence of forgiveness, is letting go. But if you're, and compassion for yourself and for other people is the key. Okay? Having compassion for yourself. I'm a conditioned being. I'm deluded. I'm still caught in samsara. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect yet. I'm really working on myself. But and then as much as you can, you let go little by little. But here, I think Buddhist purification practice this is what I think this is about, because and I've done some of this myself, and I can speak from a little bit of experience. But you bring to mind, in Buddhism, it's not about hiding from your past. It's real important to confess it and be honest and be straightforward about what you've done and how you've harmed yourself and other beings. Be very upfront about that, and then purify it. You purify it. The first point is acknowledging what you've done, and then you confess it. And then you can do some sort of practices. Maybe you do the rosary, or maybe you do mantras, or you do 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras or prostrations, or you go apologize to the person that you've done wrong, or all the people that you've done wrong. Like in AA, people in AA they make a big list of all the people that they've messed around with or screwed up or done wrong, and they try to clean it up. They try to make amends for those. I think that's really important. So, do you know about the 4 opponent powers and purification practice? I think the result of purification practice is forgiveness. It's like, okay, it may not be total and complete, but it's like self-forgiveness comes slowly. Now for Christians, it's much easier because you're instantly forgiven. But that doesn't work for everybody. That's why a lot of you are here. I'm serious. That's why I'm here, because it didn't work for me. But in Buddhism, it's a gradual process of letting go, and having compassion for yourself. Really important. Have compassion. She's about to jump out of. Go ahead.
When you're speaking about letting go, is it something tangible you're letting go of? Is it you're letting go of attachment? Is it you're letting go of an anticipated outcome? What are you letting go of?
What do you think? What do you think?
When people refer to in Buddhism just let go.
Yeah.
Is it
when you're doing meditation on your breath and you're off on some fantasy trip, okay? You're watching your breath, and you're off on a fantasy trip, and your commitment to yourself is to be mindful or recollect the breath, right? But now through your little introspective alertness, you notice, oh, I'm off on a fantasy trip, and you can let it go and come back. That's it. It's just letting go. Nothing more profound than that. Now, it's not easy to let go of something you're obsessing about. I told this story early on. I have to tell it again. Annabelle, some of you know Annabelle, my 6-year-old. When she was 4 years old, she was in school with there's a little boy in her pre-K class named Ben, and she and Ben, they had a little cot. They had to take naps at school, so their cots were next to each other, and sometimes they would hold hands, and Ben would chase her all over the playground and stuff like this. And so I teased her a little bit about when she was 4 about being. I said, "Is it Ben your boyfriend?" And no, and she'd go like that. Well, now Ben's in her class in 1st grade. She just started this week, and I said, "Annabelle, Ben's in your class in the 1st grade." And she said, it's a 6-year-old saying, she said, "I'm not obsessed with him anymore." She knows what it is to be obsessed. So obsession is attachment, isn't it? Attachment and letting go of obsession. So now she's not worried about Ben. Ben's not her problem. She's going to try to find a new boyfriend, of course, but Ben's not the one. We talked, one of the things I talked about earlier, and I think this is a good time to talk about it. This is, because this is a problem I think we all have with Buddhism in the beginning. It looks like that we can't have fun, doesn't it? It looks like attachment is our enemy and we can't have fun. And so, let's see, I'm going to write it down here. Addiction, this is not my term, to deliciousness. Now, I heard this from a Thai Buddhist saint. His name is Ajahn Buddhadasa. And he was like 80 years old, was in his 70s when I heard him speak. And he said, we're all addicted to deliciousness. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means we want everything that's good and we want nothing that's bad. So 8 worldly dharmas, remember that teaching? The 4 good ones are pleasure, gain, fame, and praise. And everything that's positive in the world can be subsumed in those 4 categories. So we want that. And the more that we obsess with having pleasure, gain, fame, and praise, the more uncomfortable we are, aren't we? And guess what? When we don't have it, how do we feel? Not so good. When we do get it, we're clinging so tightly to that pleasure, whatever it is, that we can't fully enjoy it. And then we're over here and we lose it. It's got, the marriage breaks up and the wife runs off, or the husband runs off with the new girlfriend. Oh my God, that is so painful, because what we wanted, now it's been ripped away from us. So is the problem getting what you want? Like, is the problem the pleasure, the intimacy, sexual intimacy, or having a nice car or house, or having a good reputation and people say nice? Is that the problem? People think that Buddhism is saying we can't have those things. Is that the problem? What's the problem? The craving, the obsession. The more we obsess about delicious things, the more we're going to suffer. When we don't have it, we're going to suffer. When we do have it, we're not going to fully enjoy it. And when we lose it, we're really going to have problems. Fear is all based on this mentality. Fear is based on attachment. The more you crave life, the more you fear death, right? It's the same thing. The more you crave to have anything, the more you fear losing it. So this is really important, because and the opposite side, loss, pain, disgrace, and blame. Is that bad to lose something? Is that really bad? Is that worth, somebody bad-mouthing you? Is that necessarily the cause of suffering? Does it have to be? Not really. Not really. It's only to the degree that we crave to hear nice things said about us, that when somebody badmouths us, that we suffer. When our reputation gets smashed, and we show up on the front page of the N&O. Ooh, I don't want to be there. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, and your reputation is destroyed. My gosh, it hurts so bad because we crave. This is the one we crave the most, is a good reputation. So attachment is not bad. You hear that? It is not bad. Please don't hear that obsession and attachment are bad. The Buddha never said that, did he? What did he say? It just hurts. It just hurts. It makes you miserable. Now, if you don't want to be miserable, and I don't want to be miserable, we have to learn how to let go. And how do we let go? How do we learn how to let go? We practice the Lam Rim. We learn it gradually. My mom never even mentioned this to me. And my dad, when I told him I was a Buddhist, he said, "Son, don't you think if Buddhism had anything to offer, I would have known about it a long time ago?" Oh my gosh. Well, are we out of time? Yes, we are. Okay, good. Good time to wrap it up. So if you have questions about other things, please, I'll stick around for about 2 minutes. I'm joking. Let's do the dedication prayers, please. So the dedication prayers from Master Shantideva. Now, Jill, do we do all these from top to bottom? Okay, why don't you we'll do Shantideva's first, okay? It's everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, attain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing and the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Savior of the snowland's teachings, transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion, to the lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be fulfilled. To the one who mastered his speech at a very young age, the one with great patience received the name Avatare, the one with great precision who spread the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa on bliss and void, Lama, ornament of the yellow hat tradition, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of non-objectifying compassion, Manjushri, master of stainless wisdom, Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snow, to Lama Sandrapa, at your feet I make request. Now we'll do Lama Geshe-Gelek 7 times. Tare tu re so ha. Om 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 tare tu re so ha. Okay. Thank you for your attention and your questions. That was fun.